This janitor's secret identity gets revealed because of an overenthusiastic youngster's probing. Life is full of mysteries. We go through so many emotions and experiences as humans. We have happy memories, we have sad memories, and some secrets that we share with none. Here is a man who had kept mum about a secret of his that would go on to make national headlines. Up until a young man looked through the history books, his story even involved the president of the country, and the ordinary-looking janitor had indeed lived a life fit for a storybook or a feature film. William Bill Crawford worked as a janitor at the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. He was a man who was acknowledged by some, not given the time of day by a few, too. He would spend his days going around the academy, doing his job, cleaning and wiping dirt, making sure the whole institute was spick and span. He was taking care of the mess or residues of the 100 cadets staying there. He was not a man of many words, so his presence was not something you would feel, even if you found him in the same room as yourself. The janitor was very good at his job. Even though he had started working for years at the academy, he is not someone that is noticeable. A handful of cadets would often greet him while the rest just ignore him. But why would they notice him? They did not know who he really was. He would go about his day cleaning or fixing anything in the premises of the academy. Mr. Crawford was a man holding so much mystery about leading a very discreet lifestyle. His past was about to shock the whole academy and many more when they least expected it. Even his appearance was something that really helped him conceal his true identity. He had a set of gray hair covering his head, so maybe that is why the young cadets never looked at him as approachable. He had aged a bit, so his face was covered in wrinkles, which would definitely make the youngsters stay away from him. So why would anyone give their time of day to an old washed-up janitor? He had a crooked smile that made him even more out of place in the academy full of fit and active young cadets. Crawford comes from Pueblo, Colorado, and was born there in 1918. Since his early days were quite hectic, he decided that his job post-retirement would be a calm and easy one, so he decided to take up a job as a janitor. He never disclosed the work that he did prior to taking this job at his new place of work. No one knew where this new janitor had come from, nor did they ask. Publications later wrote about him, describing him as an old man working in a young person's world. Call James Moshket, a retired Air Force personnel, was a cadet at the academy when he first encountered Janitor. He described Mr. Crawford as someone truly introverted into himself. Moshket explains, "The academy, one of our nation's premier leadership laboratories, kept us busy from dawn till dusk, and Mr. Crawford, well, he was just a janitor." Then, Mr. Moshket had no idea how big of a secret his dear old janitor was keeping from everyone. Just because something seems ordinary, it does not necessarily mean that they are. Crawford was someone who seemed to be a typical janitor but was quite the exception deep down. He only took up this job to add something to his pension. There was barely anyone who actually knew Mr. Crawford's full name. Even though he was an enigma, the fact that he was good at his job was something no one could argue with. He was diligent and serious in whatever he was tasked with. But why did he keep a huge secret? This janitor dedicated most of his time to the military family. The cadets would prepare for their examinations and athletic events while the old janitor would be busy taking care of all the trivial stuff at the academy. Since he had an introverted nature, Mr. Crawford never mingled with any of the kids. He was known to be silent and would not talk unless spoken to. The only thing he did the whole day would be sweeping, cleaning toilets, and emptying dustbins. As he was going about doing whatever needed to be done, the surprise unveiling of his past took place unexpectedly. On a Saturday afternoon, the old janitor was busy doing his daily duties cleaning while the cadets were having an exam. Moshket, who was a cadet then, was just flipping through the pages of a book that was about the World War II and Allied ground campaign in Italy. It was then that he saw something that made him scream, "Holy cow." He was shaking with disbelief and even wrote later, "The words on the page leapt out at me." He was there to fulfill his dreams of becoming an F-16 pilot, but stumbled upon a ginormous secret that Mr. Crawford was hiding from everybody. As he flipped through the pages, he saw a person with the name Private William Crawford printed in big bold letters. He knew he had heard of that name before but could not immediately place it on a face. But then he remembered the old janitor at his academy. He started to question if Janitor William Crawford had any link to this person named Private William Crawford he saw in the book. After a few days, the whole batch was intrigued to know if old Grandpa was at all affiliated with this trooper. Moshkat was about to face his exams soon, so he had to prepare for them. It was then that he unexpectedly came across this name. He read about a battle that took place some 30 years ago. The story he read was of a life-risking U.S. Army's 36th Infantry Division's battle with enemy forces near Altavilla. The story cited a particularly brave soldier by the name Private Crawford who was described to be in the face of intense and overwhelming hostile fire with no regard for personal safety. On his own initiative, Private Crawford single-handedly attacked fortified enemy positions. When he read through the pages, Moshkat was determined to find out if the Air Force Academy's custodial was in any way related to the heroic Private Crawford. He made a plan to ask if Mr. Crawford was the same man. Wasting no time, Moshkat and his roommate searched the halls to confront the janitor with the history book in his hand. When asked about it, the janitor looked uncomfortable and was reluctant to join in the conversation. For a while, he did not address the question. The two cadets were not about to leave him alone anytime soon and resorted to handing him the book. Just then, Mr. Crawford's face changed. Mr. Crawford remained silent as soon as he held the book. He glanced through the pages of the book attentively and surprised the cadets with his answer. The janitor finally admitted, "Yep, that's me." This answer only sparked up the increasing curiosity in the boys. It is rare to find a man who would rather keep his historic achievements in the dark like Mr. Crawford. When inquired about his reasons for keeping things a secret, he answered, "That was a long time ago and one day in my life." This was just the beginning of Mr. Crawford's tale, and he was about to give the shock of their lives to the two roommates. Crawford was inducted into the U.S. Army in July 1942. After just a year, he and his boys graduated with the position as a private. He started with the 142nd Infantry Regiment 36th Infantry Division on the front lines of southern Italy. As of September 13, 1943, he became a squad scout after attacking the enemy position at Hill 424 near Altavilla Silentina. The enemy was well equipped, so they were not going down without a fight. The American troops had underestimated the rival group and had to think fast. They ended up in an epic battle where Mr. Crawford's crew had to give their all. His other crewmates were defending their lives, but not Mr. Crawford. He went ahead and attacked the enemies with no fear. He showed superhuman courage, and Crawford, without instruction, landed a grenade into the enemy's base that turned out to be a success, resulting in a victory for the American troops. This was not all. Crawford actually charged into the enemy's territory. To avoid the bullets, he crawled to the German machine gun nests and demolished them entirely. He was faced with something unexpected even after doing all of this. His courage was the main reason why the American troops could be the enemy. Crawford single-handedly threatened the condition of the three giant deep-established posts. However, just after this, Crawford, another tragedy struck the group. The original spot that he has used to intimidate the enemies had been occupied by them. Crawford was held hostage now. After bombing the three prominent posts, Crawford was in captivity of the enemies. He was announced as Mia and was considered dead by his fellow soldiers. This would serve as one incident that truly made his life something straight out of an action movie. The U.S. government held Crawford's credible actions in high esteem and honored him posthumously with the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration. His award was received by his dad, as Crawford has already been pronounced dead. Everybody was coming into terms that Crawford was now a German prisoner of war who must have been dead by now. The award ceremony was a brief, impressive ceremony, and the medal was handed by the U.S. Maj. Gen. Terry Allen to Crawford's father, George. Crawford's heroic story touched so many even after several months had passed. The question of whether he was dead or alive still prevailed. His family and friends had lots of questions in their mind about the fate of Crawford, but he was not there to clarify things. But when least expected, something amazing took place. When a bunch of American soldiers was released from German captivity, Crawford was one among them. He was finally home after spending time in prison for his brave attempt at conquering his enemies. He was still oblivious to the fact that he had won a prestigious award in what would follow soon. Crawford was now free again, so he started to live a civilian life and got married to Eileen Bruce in January 1946. But since he enjoyed military life so much, he was remitted into the Army once again. His marriage was just over a year when he decided to get re-enlisted. He ended up serving the country for over 20 years and retired in the year 1967 only as a master sergeant. He then moved to Palmer Lake, Colorado, where he worked as the director of the Lucretia Vale Museum and a janitor at the Air Force Academy. This janitor is truly a humble soul, as he was hardly seen donning his Medal of Honor while he was serving in the military because he felt unworthy of the high honor. This explains his nature a lot, because he took up a job as a janitor. It is rare to see someone who has received such an honor to work a humble job such as this. Mr. Crawford makes sure he does his job perfectly, just like his time as a soldier. Everyone at the academy soon heard about the heroic tales of their ordinary janitor. His story truly changed people's perspective of him and the way they treated him. The courageous tale of this janitor spread like a wildfire in the academy. The cadets who initially left him unnoticed were now eager as ever to hear about his epic stories. Crawford was also a changed man after his story was spilled. He was now more confident and would reply to the good morning wishes that he received in a bolder tone with his signature crooked smile. He now called the cadets by their first names, leaving an impact on each and every one of them. Moschet's essay wrote, "While no one ever formally acknowledged the change, I think we became Bill's cadets and his squadron." Since the cadets were warming up to him, Crawford also opened up slowly. A janitor at the academy was now one of the most popular faces. He was in attendance to more squadron functions wearing his dark suits. He was definitely a favorite among the cadets. Crawford also revealed to his new friend about his regrets of not being able to physically attend his Medal of Honor ceremony handed by the president, as he was considered dead. Was there anything that could be arranged for this poor heroic soldier? Crawford received an invitation to join the Air Force Academy's graduation day of the year 1984. As a guest, he did not expect to witness something extraordinary that day. Thousands of guests had arrived at the Colorado Springs Falcon Stadium to join the commencement festivities of this historical ceremony. This was going to be a memorable day for the 66-year-old janitor. This day was a day celebrating and honoring dedicated cadets that had worked for months to get to this day. So what was in store for Mr. Crawford? The stadium was packed with generals, cadets, staff and their close ones, alumni and President Ronald Reagan. The commander-in-chief even included Crawford's incredible leadership, humility, and respect in the speech that he gave. The people present there all locked their eyes on the janitor as the speech was going on. The president had even praised the formed war hero who acted above and beyond the call of duty. It then came time for a life-changing event in Crawford's life. The president concluded his speech and had a special note. He then proceeded on to saying, "Now, there's something I want to do that means a lot to me and I'm sure will mean a lot to you." Then the president spoke about the achievements made by Crawford in World War II. He gave an account of Crawford's service in Europe and about his imprisonment. The president even spoke about Crawford's inability to be present during his Medal of Honor ceremony due to him being in the German troops' custody during that time. After that, Reagan announced something shocking. Well, nearly 40 years have gone by, and it's time to do it right. As he finished up his speech, he called upon Crawford to join him at the podium end. Then the president medaled Crawford with the Medal of Honor to make his lifelong dream come true. Every person present there was thrilled to see the beloved janitor receive a medal that was long overdue. The people who knew about his epic battle and tales were just as touched by this event as much as Crawford was, so Bill Crawford gladly received the honor with that infectious smile of his everybody knew so well. Both Crawford and the president were deeply touched. The viewers were heavy with the applause and Crawford could not be happier. He felt that all his efforts during the war had now paid off. Crawford was not one to brag about his achievements. He had always kept it a secret, and up until then, he had never attended an official ceremony or recognition regarding his Medal of Honor award. However, he ended up receiving it himself in the name of Congress. After getting this honor, Crawford was now a part of selected few who have earned respect from the military and the public alike. Crawford finally received the recognition he needed and wanted for doing a commendable job. His modesty was something we can all learn from. He confessed, "I was just glad that I was doing my part," and even added, "I figured it was just a normal call of duty." He still believes that he is undeserving of the honor. "I happened to be at the right place at the right time," he insists. Call. Moschet stated that the old janitor was an inspiration for him, stating in his essay, "Bill Crawford was a janitor. However, he was also a teacher, friend, role model, and one great American hero." This essay ended up touching a lot of hearts on the internet, and this legend was appreciated even more. Call. Moschet was to blame for bringing this hidden identity to the light and announced that Crawford has taught him some valuable leadership lessons. Despite being handed the Medal of Honor, the humble recipient still wanted to work as a janitor in the academy. This level of humility is something truly uncommon, isn't it? He then went on to retire in Colorado, his native state. So what did this man who had been awarded the Medal of Honor go on doing in the small town he moved to after retirement? The humble janitor expired on March 15, 2000, at 81 years of age. He spends the majority of his time on Earth serving his country and dies at his residence in Colorado where he and his wife Eileen lived. He made history even after death. His incredible dedication was enough for him to be buried at the U.S. Air Force Academy Cemetery in Colorado Springs, making him the first ever non-Air Force enlistee to lie there in the Air Force Academy. In 2009, Eileen died too and was buried next to him. On the day of Crawford's death, all Colorado flags were lowered to half-mast to show mourning and honor the celebrated veteran. Governor Bill Owens issued an order for this as he respected Crawford very much. There was a bronze statue made of him which stood next to Raymond G. Murphy, Drew Dennis Dix, and Carl L. Sitter, who were all Medal of Honor recipients from the same town. Crawford taught us to be humble, determined, and courageous. Moshkat spoke of Crawford in his essay proclaiming him as a janitor's 10 lessons in leadership, where he describes him clearly. Private Bill Crawford didn't pursue glory. He did his duty and then swept floors for a living, adding, "If Bill Crawford, a Medal of Honor winner, could clean latrines and smile, is there a job beneath your dignity?" Think about it. Moshkat was spot on about how he described Crawford in his essay. His admiration was blatant in the words that he used in his essay. His essay wrote, "A wise person once said, it's not life that's important, but those you meet along the way that make the difference. Bill was one who made a difference for me. While I haven't seen Mr. Crawford in over 20 years, he'd probably be surprised to know I think of him often. Bill Crawford, our janitor, taught me many valuable, unforgettable leadership lessons." Was this story about the war veteran toughing for you? Then you will be glad to know that Crawford was not the only man in history to receive the Medal of Honor years after his achievements. There is a list of men, and one of them goes by the name of Vernon Baker, who received his honor in 1997 for his act of bravery back on April 5, 1945. This soldier from Wyoming managed to destroy 2 German bunkers, 2 enemy observation posts, and a network of Third Reich telephone lines single-handedly. Castle Agnolfi is situated in Italy's Apennine Mountains, which was a crucial spot for the Germans strategically during battle. The Allied forces needed to take control of this castle. Baker and other 25 infantrymen on April 5, 1945 did all they could, dodging bullets, jumping hurdles, and crawling under barbed fences to get close to the castle where the Germans were. Vernon Baker was now 77 and addressed the walls of White House. He revealed, "I was thinking about what was going on up on the hill that day. I was an angry young man. We were all angry, but we had a job to do, and we did it. My personal thoughts were that I knew things would get better, and I'm glad to say that I'm here to see it." Something more was there for Baker. Even if the Medal of Honor is the highest military decoration, the occasion was different because Baker became the first ever African American from the First World War II to get this honor. A study made by a Shaw University student in the year 1992 about mistreatment of the blacks lead this war veteran to be included in this Distinguished Service Crosses. Vernon Baker was the only man to be awarded the Medal of Honor by President Clinton that night. The other soldiers eligible to get the award were Edward A. Carter, Jr., John R. Fox, Willie F. James, Jr., Reuben Rivers, Charles L. Thomas, and George Watson had already lost their lives. Second Lieutenant Baker's fighting spirit and daring leadership were an inspiration to his men and exemplify the highest traditions of the armed forces, was the Medal of Honor quote for Baker. Vernon Baker was indeed meant to receive this accolade. He had already beaten his cancer back in the year 2004. This war hero took his last breath on July 13, 2010. He passed away in the comfort of his own home in Idaho and was 90 years old. His burial took place at the famous Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia, along with his fellow servicemen. He is someone who will live on in the hearts of soldiers and Americans forever.